Some of the governments rely on epidemiological models. And when you said that these PCR tests are inaccurate, how is it possible to make models when you have this kind of tests?
Well, this is one of the great frustrations that we have right now, is that you would think with all the science and all the data and all of the agencies and all of the monitoring and disease surveillance we have from around the world, that by now we would have very clear and accurate measures of, for example, the infection fatality rate or the case fatality rate, or even such things as how many people died from COVID. The truth is we simply do not have anything like that, because we had inaccurate PCR testing. Then we had misclassification of deaths. And this was because there was so much government money going to hospitals that classified people as having died from COVID. If you died from COVID, you would get thousands and thousands of dollars of extra money. And so hospitals were listing people as having died from COVID, even though they died from something else completely, just by the existence of this virus. So incredibly, even now, we only have the vaguest idea of how many people actually died from COVID. It might have been a very small fraction of the people that we think died of COVID. It may have been as low as 10% or 6% or even less who actually died from COVID. So we don't actually know. I mean, it's so bad. The science is so bad. And then, we were exposed to so much bad science over 4 years. It's unbelievable. Then you get into the issue of vaccine effectiveness. Mm-hmm. Well, most of the data that you're going to read about vaccinated versus unvaccinated people is incorrect. Right now, you can read posts on sites like Our World and Data that will tell you that the vaccinated died at a much lower rate. But that's not true. Many governments were measuring vaccination only 2 weeks after the vaccination. So if you died in the 2 weeks after you were vaccinated, that was listed as being an unvaccinated death. So that just invalidates all that data too. So and then also you can read many studies that say that vaccines saved millions of lives, but every time you look carefully at those studies, they're usually based on complicated models that presume that the vaccine has a certain effectiveness about it. And then they run the models against counterfactual situations in which nobody gets a vaccine and conclude from that, millions of people had their lives saved. But these studies are completely fake and completely irrelevant, and yet they're out there even now.
How are you explaining this? How is it possible that 4 years later we still have this science out, as you said, and nobody wants to investigate it? Nobody wants to say, come on, finally, let's see what we can learn from it, because usually science coming after we have some special event and trying to learn something for the future. But doesn't happen this way. How are you explaining this?
It's very frustrating because, even the U.S. House Subcommittee report on the coronavirus that came out yesterday, and it's very good. It condemns masking and lockdowns and business closures and all these things. It's very good, but it cites this study saying that the vaccine saved millions of lives. And all you have to do is look at the footnote, and then you go to the study, and you can read the study and see that the study is bad science. It's fake. It's a fake study. That's the one study that they cite. So I think almost every bit of bad science that came out over the last 5 years just needs to be withdrawn from the public, because it's mostly just terrible. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of studies. What happens, I think, and you understand this, is that these people get money from the government to run these studies, and then they crank out the studies in a way that confirms what it is the government would like to do. And then they take the money and then they add it to their resume and they get a promotion at the university, and otherwise they just don't care. So it's deeply, deeply corrupt, and it's a serious problem, which is why I think we need to just change. We need fundamental reforms of academia, of the funding of science itself. It needs to be untied from the vaccine industry, which pays for a lot of the studies. These people have conflicts of interest all over the place, to the point that you just don't believe what they're saying. And the truth is that certainly in the US, but I think it's true throughout Europe, that people have lost trust in their medical systems and in their doctors and in their governments and in the media and in the big tech sectors and everything else as a result of this catastrophic experience. And it's leading to all sorts of political upheavals, really all over the world. People are voting to get rid of the generation of politicians that did this to us. And so here in the United States, they elected by large majorities Donald Trump to be a president. Now, this is the guy who has been under attack from the media for the better part of 10 years. And they tried to jail him, they tried to bankrupt him, then they tried to kill him, and then he just keeps coming back, and now everybody voted for him. Now, it's ironic because the COVID pandemic lockdowns began under the last Trump term. It was the last year of his first term that all this stuff began, and he approved it. But as soon as he approved it, then it got out of hand, and he tried to stop it. He approved it in March, and he tried to stop it by the summer, but he couldn't stop it, right? I mean, at that point, the bureaucracy had completely taken over, and there was no hope that he had of getting rid of it. And everybody kind of knows that. Like, he's never said this, but everybody knows that this is essentially what happened. So he's been brought back precisely because he seemed to be the guy resisting the lockdowns more than anybody else, and leading the kind of movement against lockdowns. And I've noticed similar things happening in France and Germany, and I don't know the politics of Croatia, but in England now, the Labour Party has been discredited. So and it's going to happen in Brazil. It's already happened in Latin America. So we are seeing this kind of global political revolutions being pushed all over the world in response to this catastrophic thing that they did to us. It's going to change history essentially forever. And there's hardly anybody alive today who really trusts what the media is saying. We don't trust big tech because they were censoring us and surveilling us the whole time. We have doubts about our doctors who told us to get these shots that actually hurt us. So there's a massive loss of trust in the system, really all over the world. And it's just now, this is going to be playing out for the next 5 or 10 years. You'll see.